Morning, everybody. Welcome to the July 8th, 2024 meeting of Henderson County Fiscal Court. We are glad you are with us, and for those watching online, we're glad you're with us as well. Start we always do with an invocation, and Reverend Charles Johnson is with us to lead us in prayer. Please stand.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this day and just allowing us to see a wonderful and refreshing day and waking up. Continue to keep our community in thoughts and prayers, our leadership from the city to fiscal court, and as they make decisions for the good of our county. We thank you for their effort and their sacrifices and challenging decisions that oftentimes they have to make. We'll also pray for our family and friends down in the state of Texas and the what we witnessed here these last few days with the flooding. We're praying for families that have lost loved ones, and as they try to put pieces back together in their lives. Help us to be thankful for what we do have. Oftentimes we overlook the many blessings that are right in front of us. And we thank you for family. We thank you for loving community. We thank you for support. We thank you for jobs. We thank you for leadership. And we just thank you for everything and all things. Bless us and strengthen us as we go out throughout this day. And we ask all these things in our Lord and Savior's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please join me as a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
All right. Magistrate Starks.
Here.
Magistrate Berry.
Here.
Magistrate Southard.
Here.
Magistrate Tompkins.
Yes, ma'am.
And Magistrate Putman.
Here.
Gentlemen, you have before you the minutes of the June 24th fiscal court meeting. After a period of review, I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other corrections, clarifications, or additions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? First item on today's agenda is joint resolution involving the airport grants that are ongoing, and I believe Alan Bennett is with us. There he is. The news is good. We are moving forward, and I'll let you describe the progress briefly.
We've got AA actively engaged, working on our project. We're working on the west end of the runway. Anticipate closure on July 14 when the exits go down. It will be fully stopped. But for now, we're operating kind of limping along. Most of our planes have moved to area airports around us, and the activity level has really dropped. But weather's coming to us, and we're making nice progress. Sorry about that. This is the third of the 3 federal grants that we had been telling you guys about. It is a 95-5 grant on the match, so local and state will pick up 5% of the total, $450,000. This draft has been furnished to Steve, so we're asking that you be authorized to be signatory for this body on that grant when it becomes available, and I can't tell you what the release date's going to look like.
So, remind me, now that we have the 3 of 3, do you have any clue as to when you'll be needing our portion of the match, of all the matches?
We can hold off. We won't be able to make it into next fiscal. It'll come out of this fiscal.
Gotcha.
We did bring you guys in for 1.9% rather than the 2.5% that we've been forecasting now for years and years. The matches kind of messed up my math as far as all of them coming out at 95.5. That was about $600,000 right off the top of the monies we felt like we'd have available. So we did come back to you and the city and request, I think, $101,000 above match which still put it in at 1.9%, rather than the 2.5% we forecast. And I think that brings each of your contributions to around 270. So with that, I mean, I feel like we've done everything we can to keep local inputs as low as possible. The state has also agreed to come across with an additional $250,000 beyond grant match out of the Kentucky Department of Aviation money. So we cobbled it together, kind of pieces and parts,
Yeah.
but we got there. Nearly $14 million worth of improvements to your airport.
Good job getting those grants. Do me a favor, and would you send me a note with our match, the county's responsibility for each of the grants, each of the three?
11,000.
Send me a note.
I'll send you a note.
Send me a note.
But 11,273, I think, is the local match, and your fiscal court's part of that is half of 11.
So for each of the grants, just
I'll send
send me
you
a note and an approximate date when you'll need it, so we can just get prepared in our
Okay.
budget to do that.
This project is scheduled to run 5 months. We are 5 months from closure, and closure is July 14. So if we close on July 14, we will definitely be having need of it sometime in that 5 months after July 14.
Just go ahead and put that in the note. We can get ready and have it set to go when you need it.
Good deal.
Any other questions of Alan? We have a resolution agreeing to our portion of this grant. If you have had a chance to read it already, I can ask the clerk to do a summary, or we can read the.
I did read it, and I would like the summary.
Is everybody else in agreement with that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
A joint resolution of the Henderson County Fiscal Court and the City of Henderson, Kentucky, authorizing application for and acceptance of funding under the Federal Aviation Administration Airport Improvement Program, or AIP, for a runway extension project, and designating and authorizing the Henderson County Judge Executive and the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
And a reminder, our portion of the match is 1.25% of $450,000.
Great.
Yeah, just,
So move.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any other questions of Alan? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Alan, thanks for the 14 years of bringing this project to
Yeah.
fruition. That's,
For a guy that's supposed to be
Thanks for
retired,
the
he sure does work a
114
lot.
yeah, he does.
You have before you rezoning case number 1177 from the Planning Commission, and without any further comment, we will acknowledge that we received that and move on to the next item. We have an appointment to the Human Rights Commission, and if Reverend Johnson would come back to the mic just for a split second. We had a member, a long-serving member who did a good job, decide to resign her post. And remind me.
Yes, Miss Sylvia Cauldron, she Hispanic Latino community. She's been on our commission for the last 4 years, I believe, and you guys re-signed her up in February. And she's going to be retiring here in a few months, and her husband are just going to go be seeing family and taking a break and doing some things. So she asked to step away as board person, but she's going to stay with us as a committee person to assist us with some outreach committees. So in that, I'm asking for you guys to consider to Mr. Cooper Beck to fulfill that role for her. Mr. Cooper Beck is just an awesome young man who's a byproduct of our community. Went off to school, came back, and just he has a heart for human rights, a heart for his community. He served on the Human Rights Commission as a student rep when he was at the high school, and he came back. He attends our meetings, our monthly meetings, and provides support. And so we would be excited to have Cooper to fulfill that position.
This is a judge's appointment, so it doesn't require a vote, but I wanted to brief you on this, and I'm happy to appoint Cooper back.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. And also, Judge, while I'm here, because I'll have to leave early, I also just want to thank the Fiscal Court for your contribution, financial support, and support for our Juneteenth this past month. I know we, about a month, but we had an awesome Juneteenth down at Central Park. Thank everyone for their support, and it just gets bigger and better each year, and the community turnout, the support from everyone, and so we should be thankful. We should be thankful for the fruition of how that came out through HLI and where it's at today. So thank the Fiscal Court for their support on that.
Thank you. Another judge's appointment to the library. We have Nibby Priest is ending a term, and he's asked to be reappointed. I've talked to Shannon Sandifer about the wishes of the board. I think Nibby's been a good board member, so I'm going to reappoint Nibby Priest to the library board. Again, not a fiscal court appointment, but just FYI, and I think that board is doing good service for Shannon, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Next item is our annual agreement between Fiscal Court, Holy Name School, Henderson County School Board, providing busing for Holy Name students through their busing lines, and this is something we get reimbursed for by the state, but we have an agreement here to codify that, and Mr. Gold has reviewed this and the approved as to form and legality. Yeah.
It is.
Any questions about this? We need to do this every year. So, get a motion to approve that agreement, please.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are also renewing the contract with Deaconess to provide our wellness efforts here at the county, which is visiting nurse screenings, things like that have, I think, proven to help our employees with their overall health. And, you know, we've had a couple years of tough insurance claims, but have bounced back this past fiscal year. And these wellness visits are, I think, an integral part of our challenge in making sure that our people are as healthy as they can be. So we have a contract, and we need approval of that contract.
Has it been reviewed, Mr. Gold?
It has. As you can see from it, it's a one-pager. It's pretty. It's more of a letter of agreement than a contract, really. But it does have a 30-day out clause, and I did ask Angela to put in there a total not to exceed. That was a concern that I had, that there's any idea of some sort of blank check. So I think once there was an amount in there, and I think she put $25,000, although Angela, I have to speak to this, that's probably double what was spent
Yes,
last
yeah.
year. So
The average is about 13.
average is much less than that, but we wanted some sort of cap for planning and budgeting purposes.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
Who seconded that? Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Casey's here for Nick.
Casey, we have a potential hire for the road department. You're pinch hitting for Nick Stallings.
Morning.
It's our on the line item. It's in the budget. It's a road apprentice, but it is the Henderson County co-op student, and we would like for him to start at the end of the month. He would like to start at the end of the month. Just want to get it approved. He makes $17 an hour. It's in the budget. And get it approved. His name is Bentley Simpson.
So hiring a request to hire Bentley A. Simpson, $17 an hour as a road apprentice.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And he'll start before the end of the month, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Gentlemen, you have before you in your packet, the coroner's report. And Sheila Patterson's with us.
Morning.
We have been a little bit busier this last month or so, so we are back to what we averaged last year this time of year. We still have lots of cremations that we signed for that are not coroner cases, so those are over and above what we take care of ourselves, which is just paperwork, but takes time. We've had a couple autopsies for last month, but we've already surpassed that number going into July. We've already been busy this month, so. Any questions about the report?
Where are you on your deputy number? Are you up to full
I
speed
did
yet?
get rehired Chris Snow, so my positions are filled.
Good.
So
Excellent.
that is helpful.
Good deal. And anything you need? Anything?
No, not currently. We had to borrow an extra large body bag from Vandenberg County for a case. So I've got a call in to order one to replace that and then get a couple for our own self for future
Gotcha.
use. So
Gotcha. And we continue to pray for your grandson. Looks like he's making progress.
he is. It's just a slow process.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the prayers.
Yeah. Any other questions of Sheila?
Doing a
Thank you,
good
Ms.
job, thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thanks.
Corner. I appreciate that. Mr. Gold, your report.
Judge, only a couple of checks today. Two interest checks, $79.62, $32.30, for a total of $111.92. And normally I get to say, you know, bringing the fiscal year total to like 200 and something thousand. Today it brings, since we're starting the fiscal year, brings the fiscal year total to $111.92.
Motion to accept the county attorney payment?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Treasurer Ryder, you have any claims?
From the general fund to Magistrate Berry, $5,302.12. This is for the 2025 training incentive and is to be paid with the July 17, 2025 pay, and is to come from the Magistrate's Training Incentive Appropriation line. To Clean Green Portables LLC, $574.40. This is for rentals used during the flood and is to come from the EMA Supplies Appropriation line. From the jail fund to Advanced Document Solutions, $791.09. This is for the copier agreement and is to come from Communication Equipment Appropriation line. To U.S. Bank, which is the credit card, $1,491.72. This is to come from equipment repairs, office supplies, and staff uniform appropriation lines.
Need a motion to pay the claims?
Move to pay claims. Second.
Motion and a second. Any other questions on those? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Judge, before we move on, I know this is not on the agenda, but I know that you weren't in town, so I just wanted to, I didn't have a chance to get on the agenda, but I wanted to bring up that I'd like to get on the books for us to move forward with getting a moratorium put in place on both battery storage and wind. I know we've only talked briefly about that, but just wanted to get that out there so we can start the process of getting that done.
I saw the video of the meeting, and so I have a thought, because one of the challenges with the BESS moratorium is we already have an ordinance in place, and we need certain, specific reasons for moratoriums. But I do have a suggestion. After, we spent weeks writing that ordinance, and I think it is probably as tight and as an ordinance of its kind could be, and it also emphasizes public safety and local control over approval of those projects, if we ever get one, including a veto power of the local volunteer fire department chief. But I have a suggestion. To make certain that we haven't missed anything with that ordinance, I'd like to submit it to as a number of independent experts across the country as we can, 5, 10, whatever that number looks like, and have it reviewed by them and get feedback on it to see if we missed anything. if there's anything more that we can put in that ordinance to improve it or to make it as forward-thinking as we can about protecting property values, property rights, and public safety. Does that sound acceptable?
So if we do that, we're going to move forward with that soon, like
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, we as quickly as I can identify the people to send it to and bring that back to the court, or if you want me to do that independently, I can, or I can bring you the list next meeting, or your preference.
Well, I think the list of the identified independent people would be good to share next fiscal court meeting. But where can we display the findings, or where can we provide the findings so not everybody watches? I mean, this is not drama-filled next, super interesting. So where are we going to provide that to see what those subject matter experts provide to us to allow us to make our next step decision?
We can have printed copies here in my office. We can post them on our website. We can make them available to email to people.
You okay with that?
I can live with that on best to start the next steps. Okay.
On wind turbines, I think considering the community conversation, it's probably time for us to work with the Planning Commission and begin the process of vetting this, and especially maybe have an even more robust public hearing process at the Planning Commission level, because all of this has to flow initially through the Planning Commission, and encourage them to take not only input from the community and the stakeholders involved directly, but also subject matter experts from around the country that are willing to testify if it requires our funding, fiscal court funding. I think we'd be willing to handle that, to make sure that the conversation covers all the bases, gives everybody a chance, and then see what the Planning Commission feels about whether we need an ordinance, whether this is an incompatible use and should be rejected, or whatever they come up with. And then obviously it comes back to us for either action or agreement or further study. We might as well start that process. It's going to have to happen anyway. If we come up with a moratorium, we're going to have to take that through Planning Commission. So in my mind, why put it off when we can address it now and try to do as thorough a job as we can getting that done.
So, I mean, I understand what you're saying. So we're going to start the Planning Commission process and tweak it down or get it to where we feel comfortable. And then we have to approve it first before we can move forward with a pause.
We'll see what they come up with. As you know, as in all the ordinances we've done, we asked Planning Commission to start a process based on what we would like to see, what they'd like to examine. We have a public hearing process. Sometimes, most times, staff draft an ordinance to begin the discussion. Public hearings are a major part of that. Planning Commission makes a recommendation to us with what they find, with what they decide, and then we have the option of agreeing. We can hold our own public hearings after that. Start that public hearing process again if we feel the need to. Or we can send it back to Planning Commission potentially with some tweaks. So am I characterizing that process correctly, Mr. Gold? I didn't want to...
Yes. KRS 100.211 subsection 3 lists how a text amendment to the zoning ordinance goes, and the Planning Commission can make a recommendation to the fiscal court of no regulation, a regulation, a moratorium, which is kind of a temporary pause, or a full prohibition.
Yeah.
They would have to be based, though, on the evidence of what's presented at the public hearings.
Okay, so here's my concern / question, and I'm glad Steve's just spoke. So I know that, and I've got something to add in at the end here for solar, but that's not. So doing this, starting this process with the planning commission, and admittedly, I'm new enough to this that I know enough to be dangerous about half the time, so forgive me for asking these questions. So we start the process with this. We are also going to look for independent subject matter experts on when to weigh in if we can't either would it be via a written submission, or if we can find somebody locally enough to do that? And I understand that we would be willing to pay for that. So is that what you have in mind to do that? Because if we do that, and Steve, here's the part where you come in. So if we do that, because as I said when I was talking to everybody, we get one shot at these things most of the time. So doing things that way to get the subject matter experts in here on the very beginning of this to see what their recommendations are, to whether we either do a moratorium, the planning commission recommends, doesn't recommend, or says it's not good for our area, or we outright say we don't want it. This is the most, I guess, the best foundational process to start with, because it gives us the most options and also prevents us from, having to defend ourselves with a federal judge or whoever, state judge, whatever it would be, because we've done our due diligence to keep us out of the courtroom, which then takes everything out of our hands. Is that fair characterization?
A lot of questions.
I know, I'm sorry. That's why I said I know enough to be dangerous. Sorry.
And first thing I'll say is I'm not a land use planning attorney. That's not, there are people that do this type of law and only this type of law their entire careers.
Right.
That's not been me. So
Right.
My understanding of that is that, yes, they're the public hearings. The public hearings need to have all of the evidence upon which the planning commission or the fiscal court would be making their determination. Unless, once it goes from the planning commission to the fiscal court, if the fiscal court decides it wants its own hearing, we can, that's called a de novo hearing, which means start from scratch type hearing. So that could be, so you said one shot, there's really kind of two, but it all goes into that decision-making process, right? So hopefully the planning commission will be in a position to get all of that information before them at once and get all of that in the record, because as you all know, when the planning commission does their public hearings, you get the transcripts, and that's what you review when you're reviewing their recommendation. And I think one question we need to make clear when this is being sent to the planning commission is exactly what we're asking. Are we asking for an ordinance, a fact-finding meeting, a moratorium, a prohibition? What is the direction to the planning commission? I will say that is a text I just received from the planning director, who apparently is watching. Are they requesting an ordinance fact-finding meeting or a moratorium? And I think people sometimes conflate moratorium and prohibition as well. Think of it more as a spectrum. A moratorium is a temporary pause to do more fact-finding or whatever, and then a prohibition would just be say, no, it's not appropriate here. We don't think this fits in Henderson. And I think there are a lot of people that are pro-prohibition that are saying moratorium.
That's why I asked that question.
Right. So I think that's the key, is whatever we send to the planning commission, hopefully at that point, because the law says no matter what, as far as any sort of zoning, no matter what the fiscal court says or wants on the front end, it has to go to the planning commission for the public hearings. And then it goes from the planning commission back to the fiscal court, and the planning commission will come back either, depending on what you're asking for, whether it's a findings of fact or specific text, ordinance text, which that ordinance text could be everything from a full regulation to height placement, any of that stuff, all the way to a moratorium or a prohibition. So it could be anything along that spectrum, because that would be text of the zoning ordinance. But ideally, all of that does get put in front of them, because they need to make that determination based on the best evidence they can. Whether it may be the effect on home values, the effect of the sound, the shadow flicker, all of those things need to be put
Looked at.
before them, and they're all significant issues that have a real effect on those surrounding property owners and potentially property values. And it needs to be something that is fully vetted before them, because that's the idea, is for the fiscal court to get as much information as possible, and the planning commission to get as much information as possible to come up with the best solution for Henderson County.
Agreed, okay.
So I think I would be good with sending it to the planning commission, as long as they come back to us. If they need, anything they need, we need to provide to them to make sure they have the information they need to make the decisions that they're making, because this is big.
So you heard the choices we have, though. Do we want them to review this for the purpose of potentially writing an ordinance? If it's just fact-finding, or can be just fact-finding, I guess. And with fact-finding, does that information that comes back to us to simply review and then make a decision about what we want to do next?
Well, the way I understood it, they could actually do all. They could do all three.
And an ordinance would necessarily require some findings of fact.
Right.
So there has to be fact findings in order to support the, whatever the ultimate text change would have to be. So that would be the question. I would think if, and this is something, again, I don't get into the granular details of the land use, planning and zoning stuff a lot, but I think the way the statute reads is a proposal to amend the text of any zoning regulation voted on by fiscal court may originate with the planning commission or the fiscal court. Regardless of the origin of the proposed amendment, it shall be referred to the planning commission before adoption. So I would think, even if they came back with findings of fact that said, here's what we recommend, it would seem like it would still have to go back to them when we actually pass the ordinance amending the text. I'll have to do a little research on that part, but that would seem like it would be a double referral to the planning commission. There may be something in the details there where if it's just a finding of fact, there's not really a lot of discussion in the laws that I've seen that talk about just a findings of fact meeting. I know they exist, but it would seem to me like, since if there was later, based on those findings of fact, an ordinance written, it would almost, since the statute says the ordinance text has to go back to them for a hearing, it would seem like that would have to go back a second time for a hearing, which would, Mayor, it would delay things, but whether or not it would be a necessary delay or not, or unreasonable delay, I just don't know.
Any of those actions, moratorium, ban, or creation of an ordinance, involve altering our zoning documents. So it's all going to be an amending of our zoning laws.
Right, and it's going to have to be a double dip, or however you want to phrase it, regardless.
It's going to have to come through us.
Right, well, it comes,
Both times.
right. So the question is, are you referring it to the planning commission for findings of fact, for them to make recommendations to fiscal court, and then the fiscal court to originate the text of an ordinance and send it back to them for yet another set of hearings, and then back to the fiscal court? Or are you going to send it to them for a recommended ordinance, which right now our ordinance doesn't have a chapter for wind turbine energy systems.
Right.
So it would be the creation of a chapter. Now, that chapter could be anything from one sentence saying, based upon the hearings that we've held, we're going to prohibit them in Henderson County, or it could be a full, chapter that gets into heights, setbacks, all of those things. That would have to be based on those findings that they make.
So then it would be fair to say that asking them to do these fact findings in the interest of writing an ordinance or proposing an ordinance would give us the most options. Fair statement?
I think that's more efficient.
Yes.
But that's something that
That's
the
my
planning
goal.
commission or planning director may weigh in on.
My,
you know.
my goal here is to remain with Henderson County having the most say on what anything happens. So
Yes.
that would be, does that seem reasonable?
Yes.
No matter what, it ultimately, any ordinance change, since the zoning regulations are an ordinance, it still has to come back to fiscal court and be
Right.
voted on by
Okay.
fiscal court, no matter what the origin of it.
All right, and I know and I appreciate the indulgence because I know this wasn't supposed to be this way, but, so last thing, would we be better off maybe, and I'm gonna volunteer / suggest the director, David Dixon, would we be better off letting them find and propose the subject matter experts? I mean, or how does that work? What do we do there?
I can ask his opinion.
Yeah, and I'm just
Yeah.
trying to make this as impartial, and you know what I mean? So, okay, so is 2 weeks enough time to get subject matter experts lined up for both wind and, or do we want to put one out? Because, you know, that's a lot. If we're going to do this right, and again, I don't want to try to do this for the sake of doing it. I want to
Yeah.
make sure we're doing this correctly because that's our responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
I would say 2 weeks is not enough time because not only, we have to identify them, then they have to agree to contribute in some fashion.
Correct.
So it may take more time than that, but
We could
the
provide an
ways-
update.
Mhm.
We could provide an update by next court meeting
Yeah,
anyway.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And I'll talk to Chairman Dixon about what we would like to see in the process. And to Steve's point, I think we need to refer it for a potential drafting of an ordinance, because any way we go, there's going to be an ordinance change.
Yeah.
So you might as well, and he said, doing that means it doesn't have to come back to us and send it back to them again, requesting
Eating up
that
more
anyway.
time,
So, and then I will, to answer your question about how they can provide input, these subject matter experts, I think it can be all of the above: written testimony, in person, via Zoom, if that's an option. I think anything we can do to get good information, I would assume they'd try to do, and we'll ask that they do.
Okay.
So maybe by the next fiscal court meeting, I can give you an update on their Chairman Dixon's opinion and how soon we could
Right.
refer that to them.
And the last thing, and then I'm going to shut up. With the moratorium already in place for the solar, I know they've just now gone into production where it's enough of the phase one is enough in production to where we can actually start seeing some life cycle management where we have to do this. So could we also potentially have the subject matter experts lined up to do the investigation / findings on what we talked about for the moratorium? I think if we're doing this and going to the table for it, we might as well start, because we're going to have to, even though they are individual, we have to treat them that way. We still need to get the ball rolling ahead of time for that, because by the time we get somebody lined up, there should have been enough time for production that these solar, you know what I mean, and hopefully, good, bad, or indifferent, we've had enough weather events and enough things to where we can really start to see how it's going to affect things.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm going to work with Nick Stallings. You know, he is basically our flood management type of point person, to maybe work with him to bring in a hydrology engineer and do some very specific
Okay.
research on what is happening and develop a report. And it may cost us a little bit of money. I don't think it'll reach the threshold of us having to bid it out, but I will double check on that, what that might look like, and bring it back to court.
Okay. Thank you.
Sound all good?
And we're gonna, and we need to start, once we start that process, we need to start doing updates with it too, so everybody knows
Yeah.
that we are moving ahead with that.
Just, and just so everybody knows, sometimes that research, there is no news for quite some time.
Right, it
until
takes
they
time.
finish, yeah.
That's
So,
right.
We'll just see how that goes and what they think. And there are a couple engineering firms in Kentucky I know that handle water flow specifically, are hydrology experts, so I think I know who to reach out to do that for us. It may take a while.
Mr. Williams still doing it?
I'm not sure. Frank Williams?
Yeah.
He's one I'd reach out to.
Say, I've worked with him,
Yeah.
he seems to be pretty knowledgeable about.
Yes. He knows the county, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've got a good plan. We just need to make sure we're going to provide updates, even if it's, hey, this is still in progress, and then be clear on where we share that. Thank you, sorry. Appreciate it.
Well, maybe if I could interject one other thing, since we're on this topic. I do know that the Chamber of Commerce has for several months, maybe even a year, been considering holding a community forum just on all types of energy. Just seeing how much of an issue it is all throughout our country, not just how it's generated, but how it's distributed. And so hearing from a lot of different factors, I think maybe they've talked to you, Judge, or not. But in any case, I do know that's something they've wanted to do, to try to provide as much information as an independent source to the community as well. So I was just wanting to say, that's something else to look out for, and then we might get some information out of that as well, depending on who they bring in as their. I think that's been part of their holdup, is trying to find the right type of people to talk
Well,
to.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's everywhere when you start trying to find information. It's
Well, and also,
Reliable information.
yeah, and
Yeah.
also people willing to come speak, that can be difficult too, because for wind turbines, for example, most of the experts in those fields exist where they're most prevalent, and none of those areas are relatively close by, other than northern Illinois and northern Indiana, I guess. But getting them to come down to a community like ours may be difficult sometimes. But I think Chamber can certainly organize that on their own. It's their choice. I'd attend. I'd like to listen. Anything else? Before we go into good of the county again, there was one other item. Kurt Wiesen, Deputy Judge Kurt Wiesen, has a contract for us to consider, and it is a KEMA, Kentucky EMA contract. The money from FEMA that may accrue to the county after the flood for our damage to roads and other infrastructure does not come from FEMA directly to us. It comes through Kentucky Emergency Management. They manage the distribution to local communities. We need to sign a contract with them to do that, and I just need your approval to go ahead and sign that so we can get on the list of potential communities that can get FEMA reimbursed. Does that make sense? Kurt, am I saying that correctly?
I move that we move forward with that.
You got to sign up if you want the money.
Right.
So you have a motion?
Second.
I have reviewed the contract. It is the standard state KEMA contract. In fact, it's for all counties that deal with it. It's a very large amount, but that's spread across the whole state. So it's a reimbursement contract. Kurt, I don't mean to be taking your thunder here, but this is a reimbursement contract.
That's correct. Basically it's money we get from money set aside by FEMA to reimburse us for road expenditures. For us to see that earlier spring flood, the first spring flood, we're in line to get about $530,000 of reimbursement. The way it works is FEMA does 100%, but the state takes 12%. We take 13% out of our own funds. So basically, we're getting reimbursed 75% of our costs for that. As Steve said, this is a blanket contract. The whole contract for the state was $200 million.
Total amount's $200 million, but that's spread across many, many counties.
Yeah, and the money goes, even though FEMA reviews our paperwork, releases the payment to the state reviews our paperwork, and then releases the money back to us as a reimbursement.
And you get it in about 2 or 3 years,
If you're lucky.
if you're lucky.
You might as well put your name in. We certainly had a lot of
no doubt.
cleanup to do on our roads. So we have a motion, I believe.
Yes.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And
Thank
do
you.
we need to do that to get the wind wind tower things moving, or do we just tell them to do it?
Say that again?
Do we do make a motion for the wind power?
I think we all agreed what we're going to do, and I'm going to come back next meeting.
Okay.
And after meeting with Chairman Dixon, and, I mean, anybody have any objection to that plan of attack, so.
Okay.
We're going to move forward with it. Okay. Does anybody from the audience have anything they'd like to say for good of the county? Go ahead and please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Shannon Hill. I live at 16751 Bluff City Road here in Henderson. I was at the county meeting, or at the community meeting. I appreciate Mr. Tompkins and Mr. Southard being at that meeting. After that meeting, I have completed hours and hours and hours of research. I have binders and binders and binders, and I have found misfacts. I went back and printed the last agendas, minutes of the meetings in regards to BES, wind projects, any of the verbiage, any of the words, because it's used. So like when you try to do a search, you're not always going to find anything to do with the wind turbines. Part of the reason with Bluff City, it is tied to Native American history. No one has mentioned that. I have reached out to the Native American Heritage Council on that, because there has not been any that I can find, and this is where the transparency comes in, reports, archaeological studies showing that studies have been done protecting the lands. Also, there was a Miss Marks, don't know who she is, but in reference to a planning commission meeting, she referred, there was one of the councilmen, or one of the commissioners asked if there was any ordinances in Kentucky. She said that there was no ordinances in Kentucky, that they would have to go to other states to look at. That is incorrect. If you go to Mason County, Kentucky, there was an ordinance of the Mason County Fiscal Court pertaining to wind energy conversion systems, and it was finalized on September 30th of 2014. There were lawsuits pertaining to the non-transparency. It's House Bill 299 from 2014. And I see my county attorney with the scowl on his eye. I have, not a scowl, but I mean, like, I see you're going to search it. Yes, I have information here as well. So whenever Mr. Tompkins asks, I think an injunction, something needs to be put on hold until, first of all, we've not had the public meeting to bring up all of these points. There might have been a public meeting at the very, very beginning, but I don't think maybe people were educated. They hadn't done their research because it was all new. It's not been done to this around this area. Now that the community is doing research, now we're bringing up more. It's not just because they're big. It's not just because they're ugly. It's not just because, I mean, there's actual legitimate concerns. And I think that's where a public meeting needs to be held, even before it goes to the Planning Commission, even because this is the things that the Planning Commission needs to think about and hear from the community, whether they want it in writing, whether they want it verbal, before decisions start being made. So this is where I think an injunction, something needs to happen to where everything is put on hold until, I mean, I want to see these results. I want to see the tests that Tenaska or that Cordelio performed. They said they were going to do a wind study from 2 to 5, or up to 5 years. Why did they stop after 2 years? If you go back and look at all the other ordinances where everyone else has done wind studies, they didn't stop at 2 years. Is it because now they're getting the 60% subsidies and they won't get it if they go past that timeline with those years? I I just don't think enough research has been conducted. You know, has anyone done soil samples? Has anyone done all of the testing that needs to be done to see how it's going to affect us in the future? I mean, if you don't get samples beforehand and testing done beforehand, and then after the fact, the results are going to be skewed because you're not going to know what your starting point was. So at this point, we're not anywhere close to even doing any type of ordinances. I just don't think enough research has been done. I know I have lots more stuff. I just didn't have notes, and I wasn't really prepared.
That's fine.
I've never been to a meeting, so I didn't know if I'd be able to address or not. I did attend the last Planning Commission meeting, and I plan on being at every meeting here out because I'm here for the good of the citizens of Henderson.
To clarify, the public hearing process at the Planning Commission can be very robust, and it happens before any decisions are made. And nothing will be permitted until that public hearing is done. The Planning Commission makes a recommendation to us. We decide what we're going to do with that recommendation. No permitting can happen until that's completed. So there is going to be a chance for people with all sorts of opinions and having done research, informing their opinions, to present that in public. I'm confident because I've seen them many times, and it's not a quick process necessarily. It could be a multiple day process if it needs to be under the chairman's discretion. So I'm confident everybody will have a chance to offer their opinions.
Well, and like Mr. Tompkins asked, like, and no discredit to you, but will it be companies or experts on both sides, for and against? I mean, I can produce the best results or the outcome based on who does my research or who does my recommendations. So I think not only maybe, do you find them, but you let the community possibly find a couple experts. So that way we know those that are in opposition are going to be represented.
Who from the community might do that?
Well, I'm not sure.
Because certainly,
We could possibly find some experts based on testimony, relevance. If I have to go to Mason County, Kentucky, that's where I will go. And find out who were their experts, how did they write their ordinance, why did they write their ordinance the way they did. Like I said, I have hundreds of ordinances, but I was looking relevant to Indiana, Kentucky, the bordering states.
I think at that hearing, you will have all of the above. I'm sure that people on either side of the issue will present evidence based on, hopefully on something.
Right.
I think one of the conversations I think it's important to have with Chairman Dixon is how he would like to go about presenting third-party, if you will, independent experts. Our offer is to pay for whatever they need to pay to bring in whoever they think would be worthwhile, and letting the chairman of the commission kind of decide that may be the best way to go, because they're probably supposed to start in the most neutral frame of mind possible, so they might be a good source.
So who would be able to tell us or tell me, or how do I get copies of anything that Cordelio or Tenaska, what research have they done? Where is the findings? Where's the copies of reports of everything that they have completed? Wind study, decibel ground samples, archaeological studies.
They're sitting right there. You can go ask if you'd like.
Okay. I don't know who they are, but.
Yeah. So I think anything that's submitted to the Planning Commission ahead of time, you can be provided copies of, too.
Okay. All right.
Just a clarification, what was that House bill number? You said it's a
House Bill
2014 bill?
House Bill 299, and it's, what was, in 2014.
Okay, when I look up House Bill 299 in 2014, that's an act relating to vapor products.
Okay, can you look up anything related to the Mason County Fiscal Court pertaining to their wind energy
We
conversion
have, and we have a
systems?
copy of that, and I've been in contact
I
with
do.
their county, no, we have it.
Oh, you have it. You have
Been in
Mason County's?
contact with the county attorney there
Okay.
some time ago. I believe back in 2023, I think the planning director and I had looked at Mason County's
Okay.
wind ordinance.
I was just confused as to why Ms. Marks said there was no ordinances in Kentucky, and we would have to,
I believe the planning director has entered the room.
okay, perfect. Okay. Uh-huh.
Just please introduce yourself for the record.
Brian Bishop, Executive Director of the Plan Commission. She is exactly right. We misspoke when we said that. We have a copy of that ordinance. That was just an error on our part. So
Right. Well,
we
that's-
would, we'd be the second, not the first.
Yeah, so that's why I said, I mean, whenever it first started, there wasn't a lot of I don't want to say education, but a lot of research had not been completed. So I would like, and I can address that with,
Yeah.
to get on the record and for that to be changed in the notes on the planning committee,
Well,
that,
we can't change the notes because those are record. It's of record.
So
We
you
can't
can
go
do it-
back and change minutes, but we completely can acknowledge that we made a mistake.
And do an
We would-
addendum.
Well, there's nothing to an addendum to.
Okay.
I mean, though, that was said in the minutes, so it's part of the public record. Now, that being said, we misspoke, and Mr. Gold's right. We have the text of that. We have looked at that for a while. That was just an error on our part.
okay,
So,
perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak for good of the county? Please introduce yourself.
My name is Lisa Meyer, and I live in Niagara, lifelong resident of Niagara. First, I want to show my appreciation for Taylor and Tim for actually coming to our meeting that night. It was well attended. There were over 130 people there. I guess I'm disappointed, and what we would like to see is something that's going to stop any further activity until the actual research is done, and, you know, you have, for lack of a better word, you have a better understanding of what these wind turbines are going to entail. I mean, looking at the amount of concrete that goes into the soil, looking at, you know, flight patterns and all that kind of stuff. We have been in contact with the FFA, not FFA, what is it?
FAA.
FAA.
That's the hardest three letters to say in the world.
Anyway, what they're saying is that they did not look at ambulances, you know, the air flights, crop dusting, or any of those kind of things. And those things are valid in our community. And, you know, those things should all come into play also. We really just don't feel like any proper research has been done. So what we would like to see is an immediate halt to anything going on with those until we can actually properly examine the situation, speak to people, get experts in. I mean, I don't know what the big hurry is, but can we get a halt on that, all activities relating to that until the court and experts are actually contacted to really see, is this what we want to see in Henderson County? I mean, we're close to the 5,000 mark on our petitions, so that's pretty quick to get something like that done in a week, 2 weeks. So we're real close. So my question to this court is, can you give us a temporary, what is it you call it? Moratorium to stop all activity on this until we can properly examine, research, talk to experts, and then make a decision.
I think that's what the planning commission process is for, all that.
But in the court, can you, whatever you guys do, to say that you're going to speak to the planning commission immediately and try to get this done quick?
That's what,
I don't think quick is the goal, it's thorough.
We'll do this as quickly as we can do it accurately, and that's what we've talked to do, and
But
that's
what's
what
the
we've
harm in
committed
putting
to.
it on hold until
We
you
still
can
have
get
to
this
start the
done?
process with what we're doing.
nothing
Why can it
can,
not be on hold until then?
it can't move forward until it goes through the planning commission anyway. They can't move forward as long as, they have to go to the planning commission first before it can move forward. So as long as we're working on an ordinance
They can't do
and doing the
anything.
research, they can't move forward with it.
But
So
again,
I think I may be able to provide some sort of clarity here. For example, our solar moratorium, that is a pause on all solar, was an amendment to the zoning ordinance. Any text amendment to the zoning ordinance has to go through the planning commission first.
Okay.
So, and Mr. Bishop is in the room, he can correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is even if we were to do a moratorium on wind, that would go through the planning commission. That's still an amendment to the zoning ordinance, right? So that would have to go through, even a moratorium would.
Even just a
so
temporary
this,
hold, like a 30-day or even 2 weeks. I mean.
Well, I mean, it's going to take more than 30 days to begin to put this all together anyway.
Well, I think it's possible to get it done in 2 weeks, but, you know, I
I'm
come
sorry,
from
our
industry.
process, on our end.
Yeah, well, can't be any more than.
The wheels of government work slower than anything you ever known.
I know.
well, and Mr. Bishop may be able to provide some, my understanding is that a moratorium would be an amendment to the zoning ordinance, but if there's some way to do just a resolution that would be an effective moratorium, I don't, you know, for example, our solar moratorium, like I said, is a text amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Yes, that is correct. So what we did there is we held a public hearing on the solar ordinance, or the solar moratorium. My understanding, and I could be wrong, I'm not the lawyer, is that it could be done through a resolution. I specifically know of a county in Nebraska called Knox County. They had done something similar. So that's the direction I would point. Yes, the Plan Commission's happy to do it, but my understanding was it could be done through a resolution. But I'm also not a lawyer.
Well, and that's Nebraska too. So could we sit down with Mr. Friday, the
Sure.
Planning Commission attorney, and verify whether or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's the land use planning expert. I
The
wanna
research
make
I've
sure.
done, that's what I came up with, that you could actually do that even in the state of Kentucky.
Have any other counties done that? Because
I don't remember.
following the herd is usually a good thing from a legal
Right.
standpoint, so
But
if
it
there's a
doesn't
herd to
hurt to
follow,
first
let's do
either.
it. I understand. I just want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that is correct. So I know placing it in the zoning ordinance would require, the law says we have to send it to the planning
Right,
commission.
right.
Now, if there is just a way that we can do a resolution that directs the planning commission not to process any applications, and I don't know that any are imminent, but if there were, if there a way to do an ordinance that directs them to, for some period of time while it's under study, not to process applications, then, yeah, that would be something that should be.
That's what I would like to see happen, and I think the almost 5,000 signatures we have, that's what they're wanting.
I would too, personally. However, I just want to make sure that it's something
No, I
that the
understand.
fiscal court can do. So that's something that, yeah, I'd be happy to, at the direction of the fiscal court, if you all want me to, be happy to get with Mr. Bishop and the attorney for the planning commission, who this is his legal world, just to make sure that we actually could do that.
Okay, I think that would be great, and I appreciate it very much.
And to clarify, there are no applications in the system at the moment.
We didn't know about the one on 425 either, but it kind of jumped up and went through last Tuesday. So,
That's not true.
That was approved.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue about this right here because we talked about it out there too, but
I know what we
that
did.
was all part of it. We went through
It
this
just-
out there.
Yeah, but it kind of came out of the blue,
Okay.
you know, and nobody was aware of it, so,
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
okay.
And like I stated out there too, for the record, my father and I and about 3 other people, and I was as busy as anybody. 2 kids playing sports all the time, working 50 or 60 hours a week. Personal accountability comes into play. And if I get a little aggravated, forgive my tone, but, you know, you have every right to be passionate where you are. But that didn't just pop up. That was part of the original plan that was brought to this several years ago. So I just want to be fair and accurate, and that's all I'm asking.
No, I understand, but it came out of the blue for us.
I understand.
We did not know that that
But when
was
you
in
say
process.
that, that makes it appear that
No, I
it
didn't mean
just
it
came
that
to
way.
be.
No, no.
It was new
no.
to you.
It was new to us.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else for good of the county? Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Tim Volk. I'm a Vice President of Development with Cordelio Power. I'm the reason for the issue you're discussing here today. Just want to let you all know that we are not imminently submitting an application for anything. We don't have a layout. We don't know where things are going to go. We haven't done the studies that they're asking for. We're too early in our process to have any of that information figured out. Yes, we're trying to develop a wind, storage, and solar facility in Henderson County. We don't know what the final footprint's going to look like. So we have time to figure things out. And every time I meet with people within the county, Judge Executive Snyder, the Planning Department, Planning Commission, we always encourage them, do their homework, find facts, and let's figure this out. So just as a little bit of background on what we're proposing, we initially started talking to some landowners in Henderson County in 2022. We're still pursuing land rights to define our project footprint. We are asking for an ordinance to be developed to help us understand what our siting requirements will be, how far we need to be set back from infrastructure, residences, property lines. It's all part of the process. That, we want to be transparent, we want to understand, and we want to have regulations in place that make sense. And the key thing that we recognize here in Henderson County is we believe that this county has the potential to host a renewable energy facility because we have landowners that want it. We have been able to secure voluntary lease agreements with people that are willing to host these facilities on their land, and we fully believe that they should have the right to do that. So first and foremost, there are people that want this, and there are people that should have that right. Secondly, we have transmission lines here. Thirdly, we have wind resources and solar resources that are sufficient for generating electricity. It's new to Kentucky because the technology to allow those technologies to work efficiently here have advanced in the last 20 years. Turbines are bigger, blades are longer, towers are taller. It allows us to capture the energy that we couldn't 20 years ago, where the machines were too small and inefficient to make it economically viable. So we're in a different world, and that's why we're here now and nobody was before. So with that, I can guarantee that we're not going to file an application or put anything together until at least some point the middle of 2026. We will not be able to start construction until at least 2027 or potentially 2028. So we are a long way from trying to advance a project into construction and operations. So let's figure this out. I've been doing this for 20 years. I think I come from a position of having a very good understanding of what these facilities are. I'm certainly willing to give a presentation about all aspects of what our facilities look like, what research and what studies we do during their development, and what the impacts are during operations. I've worked in probably 20 states across the country, going back to 2004. So again, it's an opportunity for me to come in today to lay out some of the stuff we've done, let you know that we're a long way from being done, and we've got a lot more work to do before we are able to do anything. I'll take questions if you want to have a dialogue today, or I'm certainly willing to come back and do a more formal presentation at some point down the road.
Based upon your statement that there are a lot of unknowns and still a lot to be done as far as fact-finding here locally, would you be opposed to the fiscal court passing a resolution today that would direct the planning commission to, while this process is going, not process any applications for new wind turbine sightings?
For what duration?
That would be the question. I mean,
No,
it's what I'm hearing is that it's going to take longer than the traditional planning commission process would take. Would you be opposed to I don't know, I'm not a policymaker here, I'm trying to make something, that makes sense
24
happen.
months.
Say 6 months, 24 months, whatever.
I think 24 months is unreasonable, that you should be able to get an ordinance in place well within that time frame. I would propose 6 months as an initial target to allow you to do your research and the development of a potential ordinance to be adopted.
6 months, 4 months, doesn't matter to me. They're going to be a year before they apply. We still have to run this through planning commission at some point.
But again, sorry.
Ma'am?
So the reason I'm asking for information from an ordinance that could be adopted is that it is what we are waiting for to allow us to design the facility. We're not able to proceed with site surveys and studies to define where we want to propose things until we have those established groundworks for us to really site our turbine locations, access roads, collection circuits, and everything else that goes into a facility.
I'd like to see a list of what you do study, what you do test.
Sure, and I think we're getting into a bit of a discussion of who has jurisdiction for what aspects of our facilities. So the county, in my view, has oversight for land use. We also have to interface with multiple federal and state agencies for aviation safety. Yes, we have filed a preliminary study for planning for the FAA.
Yep.
We also have to go through Army Corps of Engineers. We have to go through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
I understand all the agencies you have to work with, but I want to see the list. We did this study, we did this study, and the results of said studies. So I understand the agencies that are involved. I asked about the list, not to be argumentative, but that's not what I was saying. So I think those would be a good first step too. While we're doing, you want an ordinance, it would like to see us do that. You know what I mean? I'd like to see those things too, because in my mind, I have to see facts, information. I understand you've been doing it for 20 years, and I can respect that fact, but I haven't.
Well, I guess
so anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
But I just want to make a question, though, as far as what is it that you're asking for? Are you asking for the list of studies that we will need to do in the future, or the studies that we have done to date?
I'll take both.
We haven't done any to date. We have installed 2 temporary meteorological towers 2 years ago to help us assess the wind. Contrary to what was stated, we are still studying the wind, and we will continue to do so until we're able to start construction or other steps. But we can certainly work with you.
And I was meaning even, and I understand, but there's got to be similar soil types and things like that, situations to where you're proposing to do this. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So
we've not done anything yet, other than tabletop and desktop assessments to indicate that we expect the final field surveys to demonstrate that, yes, we will be able to proceed.
Do you think that there's a scenario under which you could submit an application before next July?
It's very unlikely.
So would you be opposed to a resolution that we would say we would not permit any or accept any applications for new wind turbine facilities until next July 1? And in the meantime, continue the planning commission process because we still have to do that. Hang on.
So, but again, my first request is to help get an ordinance in place to establish the rules separate from processing an application.
I think what the resolution would help is we go through this round with the planning commission, we accept all testimony, public hearing comments, and having that, knowledge that you probably won't be submitting an application until next summer at the earliest, it allows us, if we feel like we need more time, to take it after we go through the planning commission process, after we develop whatever the planning commission might suggest is the best route. We take that recommendation and do with it what we will. It will, I think, allow us comfortably to take more time if we feel like we need to. Does that make sense? And it doesn't necessarily unfairly impact what you want to do in your application timeline. You're telling me that, I think. So what's the difference? We'll still engage in the planning commission process, but we won't have to worry about dealing with an application until likely next July 1 or later.
I suppose the other question then is, if an application is submitted, what is the time frame within which its approval may be granted? And the reason I'm asking that is in order to help me understand when I can give my investment team the go-ahead to go out and sign $100+ million contracts for construction activities. when we go through permitting processes, we have an expectation that they will have a finite timeline to a decision, right? So that we're really trying to plan a 7-year cycle from when we started here until we're able to have this project in service.
If I'm not mistaken, once an ordinance is in place, it's on order of a 60-day process.
Okay. So with that, the expectation that that is going to be embedded within the final ordinance,
You may ask the planning commission director specifically, but once an ordinance in place, it's not a long process.
Okay. So I can commit to not submitting an application before July 1st of next year.
Anybody have a thought on that?
I think, just one clarification though, I think we're the only developer that's pursuing a wind project here. I can't guarantee it, so I can say that we won't be submitting an application.
So what I'm hearing is you actually need us to get an ordinance done, so you know you can't do any studies, because if you're gonna, if you want to study here, and then we put an ordinance in that says then you wasted that time and money.
Exactly.
You need to know what the rules are. You don't really care what we put in the ordinance, you just need to know how you're gonna play by the rule.
I care what's in the ordinance,
Well,
and I want to make sure I can play by the rules, yes.
Right.
And one, I think, to that point, one option we might have is to go ahead and, if the planning commission recommends the development of an ordinance, we can do that now with a start date, an effective date of the ordinance being of our choosing. For instance, July 1 of next year, but in the meantime, you'll have the language of whatever ordinance we produce. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so again, my request would be we have an ordinance in place by the end of this year to give you a target with an effective date later if there's any issues that come up in the process or otherwise.
If we start the planning commission process, either later this month or next month, I don't see why some sort of decision can't be made before the end of the year.
And just to be clear, the Planning Commission has a whole spectrum of options available to them that would be up to and including a full prohibition.
Right.
Correct.
So that's...
But again, that lets him know, I need to go. You know, if that was the case. So it's...
You understand that's a potential outcome?
It is.
Yeah. Anybody have any other thoughts?
Am I done, or?
No, he's got-
And if nobody else has any other questions or any other comment?
I'll stand down, thank you.
Okay, all right.
He's got something.
Please introduce yourself.
Just 1 second, I'll give business cards, that way people
Sure.
have my contact information. if you don't
Sure.
mind. Everyone else is-
And as to,
I think y'all want one, don't you?
Um,
Can you make sure the ladies in the front row get one, please, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you.
as
Appreciate
to
it.
the
Thank you.
idea of waiting until July 1 to
Thank you.
accept any applications?
Thank you.
Let me double check on our ability to do that sort of resolution, and at the next meeting,
Put it in.
you know, say thumbs up, we
Okay.
can do that.
Okay.
They're not going to make an application in 2 weeks, so I think we're good.
Yep.
But now, I'm sorry, introduce yourself, please.
Randall Heath Green.
Yes, sir.
So my question is, by stopping that, does that stop my negotiations with them?
No,
As far as doing a contract, by postponing?
no. All that preliminary, I think, things can happen, but an application can't be brought, or won't be brought into the fiscal court if we approve such a resolution until July 1. But the pre-negotiations, the pre-work can go on. There's nothing stopping that. Just understanding that whatever agreement you might reach might have to be changed based on whatever is enacted in law.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Please introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm James Franks from 2301 Toy-Ann Thoston. First, I'd like to say thank you all for having such good discussion today, and thank you, too, for coming to that Niagara meeting the other night. Mr. Gold, I have a question for you. Is it true that a moratorium would not stop any of these companies from doing their normal operations as pre-planning? It would only stop permitting and moving forward with actual construction?
I don't know what their normal operations are enough to know, but.
Like deal
but
making with
the-
residents?
Any moratorium that we could put on would only have to do with the site plans, building plans, things like that, through either building and codes or planning and zoning. As far as what else they do, I would assume that would be up to them. Am I correct, Mr. Bishop? I'm looking for a thumbs up there. Okay.
So if you gentlemen were to enter, to institute a moratorium, which is not a prohibition, it doesn't stop these businesses, it doesn't tell them you're not allowed to come here. It just essentially puts a pause on them from being able to go get a building permit and construct whatever it is they're trying to construct. Is that my understanding?
That would be my understanding. That's the way the solar moratorium reads.
Okay. So you heard a couple folks here, and the other night you heard a lot, and I think what you guys are fixing to do is great. But what this lady here spoke before me, I think what she was trying to ask is, she wants a moratorium, and a large number of folks want a moratorium in place that cover all three until you have the ability to get that information back for 12, 24 months so that you can review it and make those changes. So could the magistrates ask for a resolution for a moratorium for 12 months for all three, wind, solar, and BESS? That would just stop the permitting application and would still not deter businesses from doing their normal research if they want to come to the community.
Solar's under a moratorium now.
Yes.
Oh, you're asking me? Okay, sorry.
You're the county attorney, so I'm still,
Yes.
sorry, still directing that to you.
Sorry.
They look to you to know if they can do these things.
So they would need to be done separately, but yes, they, as I said, when we did the solar moratorium, they do present three different types of challenges, so they would need to be done separately. With battery energy storage systems, or BESS, as they call it, that, since there is already an ordinance in place, and I think you were involved in some of the drafting of that ordinance, that would be a text amendment, just like the solar moratorium was. So that would be something that would have to be sent back to the Planning Commission to amend that particular text of that existing zoning ordinance. But yes, I mean, that's, the fiscal court can do those things. What we were just talking about and discussing with the wind was not a text amendment moratorium, because there is no text in the planning and zoning ordinance with regard to wind at this time. So that could be done through a text amendment, or the discussion was, and I'm not 100% sure whether under Kentucky law that direction could be done by just a resolution or whether it needs to be an ordinance. That would be something that I would want to talk with the Planning Commission's attorney about, since he's the subject matter expert in that field. But they could all be done. The question is exactly what the procedure and the path would need to be to make that happen. But I know best, since it does already have an ordinance in place, that would be an amendment to that text.
Another question separate from that goes back to the solar. A large number of folks want to know what is being done during the moratorium that is in place on solar. Have you folks directed a committee or any experts to do research? We know that you've told us numerous times you're waiting to see what happens with the erosion and flooding and things, but have y'all actually hired anybody to come in or formed a committee in the community to report back to you about findings on the solar?
We just discussed that.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's what I told the judge is going to provide a list, and we're going to make sure we've got independent people, because just like you said at the meeting, it's one thing for me to go out there and look at it. I mean, so yes, local, but we're certainly no authority, so that's why we're in the process of doing this.
Okay, I thought that was on the wind, so that was on the solar.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
100%.
awesome.
I'm still out there every week.
So,
And they just got one completed, so really, you can't study it until it's in operation.
I think what the group was talking about, that you hear a lot about these PFAs and these other things that are way above my pay grade and probably yours, scientific type things. And so there was a lot to it other than what is physically happening to our community that we can see. I think they were looking for somebody that, soil samples, those type of things.
That's why we have to have those experts there. So
Right.
and those, we're going to provide them, updates on that, and have the list of the people we find that are willing to participate, whether through volunteer or we have to compensate them.
I think that'd be great.
That's what we're working on, so.
So, next question, I've only got two more, and I'm gonna get out of here, because I know you guys are ready for lunch like I am. The BES. So, I didn't get the opportunity, Mr. Gold, said I was part of crafting that. I was part of the group trying to opposition, but unfortunately, I didn't get to weigh in on how it was done. I wanted a prohibition, and I didn't know that word existed, so thank you for the education.
I'm sorry,
there,
I thought you had suggested some amendments that ended up.
I did,
getting-
but unfortunately, I wasn't part of the group. But with that being said, I was told, along with a lot of others, we've got to have this ordinance in place to keep these folks from doing whatever they want to do. We now know that's not the case. They need the rules to learn how to play. So we haven't went back and made any changes. Lots of requests were made. I've requested a lot. Me and you've talked a lot. And the information that's come back to me and several others was, we don't want to do this all. We don't want to look like we're kind of picking at it. We want to do it right. But again, there's not been any nothing put on the agenda. There's not been any the Planning Commission hasn't been directed to do any research to possibly make text amendments to the BES ordinance, and there's a lot of folks that want to see some changes. So part of what we've talked about here today is the request to the Planning Commission going to also be separate, since it is a separate one for the BES, to review and take public comment for changes to text amendments on the BES ordinance.
We did have a text amendment that involved public hearing, and it was just a short time ago where we amended a sentence to require in all cases any developers to absolutely submit all reporting and absolutely be subject to a veto from local volunteer fire department chief in whose district the project might be developed. So that was at least one text amendment. If you have some text amendments you'd like to see, please send them to me.
Well, it's not me personally. There's a group of folks that do, such as screening and setbacks, things of that nature.
Those are in the ordinance. But if what you're
These are
saying
requested
is,
changes.
okay, please send them to me.
I will pass that information along. So we are not, as we were told in the beginning, we're not going to work on doing any further research on it. You're waiting for the public to come to you regarding the BES ordinance and request specific changes.
Having worked on that myself with a panel, a committee, I think we made it as extensive as we could, and not just in the drafting of the ordinance, but an additional group of potential questions involving safety aspects that both the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Adjustment, or even Fiscal Court, could ask to provide potential further requirements on those developments. So it's probably one of the most restrictive ordinances we have in our entire code of ordinances. And but if you've got suggestions, please submit them.
Okay. There was one other thing, but I've forgotten. So we're meeting again in 2 weeks, normal court, and at that time, it's business as usual. There's not currently anything today taking effect. There's no moratorium. Nothing has been done today from you gentlemen regarding any of these three issues, other than asking the Planning Commission to do some things. You haven't stopped anything or paused anything, just so we're clear for everyone.
We haven't taken any formal votes to that effect, no.
Okay.
We have a set of things we'd like to get done in the next 2 weeks or more to prepare for whatever's going to happen next with the Planning Commission.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lisa Meyer, if I understand correctly, you were talking about putting a resolution in place that there would be no activity, formal activity, on the wind turbines until July 1st next year.
We would, I think, but the resolution, we have to still double check that we can actually do this, but the resolution was not to accept any applications.
Okay. So then nothing would be, an application that's already out there then, there would be no activity on that, official activity?
We don't have any applications for wind turbines yet. There are none in the pipeline.
Okay. So there would be no official activity on that for till July 1st next year?
Well, what do you mean official activity?
Accept any permit requests, accept anything on the Planning Commission, whatever the process is.
Well, we're going to, I think, we're going to continue the process of submitting to the planning commission the request for a public hearing and potentially develop.
Right,
of
but that's all
an
behind the
ordinance,
scenes. But
we-
nothing formal is going to be approved.
We won't accept any applications.
Okay.
To even be considered.
Right.
But we may approve an ordinance.
Okay.
That could happen. But that doesn't mean, again, we won't necessarily accept any applications until July 1st. That's the informal request, and I think the informal thing that we all felt like we could live with, but we still have to decide, get a legal opinion on whether we can simply do a resolution.
Okay.
Or there's something more involved in order to get that.
And if, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, but if it's legal, I think we'll do that the next court.
Okay.
Put a resolution, if we can,
Okay.
legally.
We'll be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to that end, I think the wise thing would be if there were a resolution to do it, just to make sure that it ends up being handled as correctly as possible.
Agreed.
We do it as a resolution and then also include that in the referral to the planning commission as one of the options that can be recommended for them. If they say that after having their hearings, they need additional time or something like that, that they can
Correct.
also recommend a moratorium that way.
Agreed.
So it would be.
Agreed.
If it's being done at the next fiscal court meeting, there'd be two votes. One on a resolution to institute a pause on accepting those, and then second would be the referral to the planning commission. Or I don't know, have we done the referral to the planning commission today?
Well, I think I'm going to meet with Chairman Dixon to discuss a little bit more and bring back his opinion to the court in 2 weeks. I think in 2 weeks, we may be prepared to make a referral. Everybody's in agreement. Yes, ma'am, introduce yourself, please.
My name's Kelly England. I'm from Roberts. Taylor is my magistrate, and I just want to tell him thank you. He and Tim for coming to the meeting. Taylor's been very responsive to my texts and calls, and I appreciate that. And I am requesting that due to the scale of these projects, that this be a standing agenda item. If there's nothing to report, it would just be nothing to report. That way the public can see that it's on the agenda, and if they want to come, puts it in forefront of everyone's mind, I need to go, I want to say something about that. If not, every meeting, once a month is what I'm requesting. And I do want to say to the gentleman from Cordelia, or however you say it, this is more about, he was talking about it being about property rights, and it is about property rights. It's about everyone's property rights. We can't put more than an acre of solar on residential properties because of the effect that it would have on property rights around them who choose to have it on their property. But if it's zoned commercial, you can plaster it for thousands of acres and affect all the homeowners around it. So it's about everyone's property rights and not just those who are going to benefit from it.
Anyone else for good of the county? Hearing none, go around the horn. Magistrate Southard.
Caught me off guard, Judge.
You want me to start at the other end?
No, I'm good. This solar and wind power thing has kind of hit us all. I don't think any of us was prepared for what we're seeing or what we got. I know Taylor are trying our best to get our hands around it and make it right, and try to make it right for everybody, because there's always two sides, and we've got to try to make it right for all. It's not something that's easy. It's not something that we particularly wanted to have to deal with, but it's here, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to get it right. That's our goal. So, that being said, it's all's good in District 3.
Magistrate Tompkins.
I'll just say, like I've said before, we will do this as quickly as we can do it accurately, considering all facts and willing to listen to people's opinions. So I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and that's all I've got to say today.
Master Butler?
Thank you, Judge. A lot of the information, today that come through, and there's a whole lot more to get, obviously. I mean, I like the whole plan that we were proposing, that, and the judge is going to get with a list of, get a list of people that's experts that we can talk to and get information from, so we do due diligence to the best solar and wind. I say that to say we will do everything that we can that's right. And all's good and forth, Judge.
Master Stark?
Thank you, Judge, and thank everybody for coming out today. And I think this is what we need. We need discussion. We need to hear what you're looking for. You need to hear what the process is. And I think we are on the right track here, because just like our fellow magistrates, we need the information. We all do, and to make a good, informed decision. And maybe a little history here. If you recall back when the surface mines first came and proposed their projects, this county was the only county in the state of Kentucky that put into its zoning and planning, and I think Brian can back me up, or the judge or anybody else, we had our own surface mine regulations in addition to what the state and federal, and we had that. We had more bonding than other counties did, because we care about what happens to the people that we represent. And I don't see us doing anything different with these issues. So just know we are taking this very seriously. It is very complicated. And I agree with Tim, it's not necessarily something we wanted to deal with, but here it is. And so we've got a process, and we're going to follow that. So, but again, thank you for coming out. I was just going to add, we've had 2 young people lost their lives over this past holiday weekend. I don't know if you're aware of that, to ATV crashes. And our sheriff was here earlier, and I think he had to step out. But there was actually a news article that I saw that he was quoted in, talking about we're going to see a lot of activity, especially young people on ATVs this time of year, school being out, that type of thing. And I was just going to say, let's please observe all the safety rules. Unfortunately, it's a story. I know my friend Keith Berry here probably has had to maybe investigate some crashes. Yeah, a few. So let's just be very, very safe about that. There's a lot of good information about how to be safe on these types of things. So if Chip was here, I was going to ask him to come up and just say a few words, because he had a very good comment on this. I will also add that I'm very pleased to be able to serve on a new group that is being put together in our community called the Long-Term Recovery Group. I'm going to let the judge maybe address more about that. But this is in regards to what we're going through right now with our own flooding situation, and making sure that people are getting the help that they need and deserve on that. But also, it'll be in place for any future disasters, whatever they may be. And so I think that's something, that our community unfortunately has been visited by past floods and other emergencies, and I'm tremendous for taking this step so we can be better prepared in the future. And then there was also something that came up on my email just the other day. I think it was yesterday, and it's talking about post-crash care. And there's a safety week, and it's about to start here in Kentucky. And unfortunately, I think I had it pulled up and now it's gone. But this has to do with particularly accidents, traffic accidents in rural areas. And of all the fatalities, 46% of those, when the first responders got there, the victims were still alive, but unfortunately were lost somewhere between the accident scene and getting them proper medical care. Now, I think we have a very good emergency response program with our EMTs and ambulance service and first responders and the volunteer fire departments. And it's part of this is to recognize what they do out there to make sure that people can get the care in a timely manner so that just an accident doesn't turn into a fatality. But again, there's a lot of travel going on out there right now, and especially on rural roads. Let's be particularly careful out there, obey that speed limit. There's a new enforcement effort called Speeding Hits Harder, little speed hits harder, and it's true. You may just be going 5-10 miles over the speed limit. That's still going to mean for a more severe crash. So I just wanted to, I'm kind of the safety kind of guy in my house, so I like to be the safety guy here too, because that's one of our big responsibilities as well, is to promote safety on the court and then for our county residents. So with that, Judge, I'm done.
Thank you. Master Berry.
Thank you, Bill. You covered me again. I want everybody to know on the wind and solar power things, I would love to leave here today and go teach a class and teach you everything about it. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen because I don't know. We don't know. We're still trying to learn. We're trying to learn everything we can. And we represent the people of Henderson County, and believe me, we're going to do the right thing. It takes time to learn, and I think that's what we've been talking about today, a lot of it. And for anybody or you can pass on, we're going to do our best to do the right thing. So, I hope you all believe that. I'm sincere with that when I say that. We don't take this lightly. We wish we didn't have to deal with it. I'd like to watch Davis County or some other county deal with it, and we could say we're glad we don't have to deal with that, but we're here. It's here, and we got to do our best. So, Judge, with that, I think it's good in District 1 right now. Thank you all.
Mr. Gold.
Thank you, Judge. One of the interesting things about my role is I have a client. My client is this fiscal court, and the fiscal court has laws they have to follow, processes and procedures, and it's my job to point those out to them and to try to ensure that those are being followed, regardless of what my personal opinion may be on things. And while I know that there are different types of energy that are part of getting America toward energy independence, and property rights are incredibly important. One person's rights begin to end where they start to infringe on somebody else. And that's the process, and one of the reasons we have a planning commission and have a fiscal court is to try to figure out where those lines are and get the actual evidence behind, for example, what sort of effects things have on property rights, things have on health, public welfare, safety, all of those things. On a personal level, the idea of 700-foot plus wind towers is ridiculous to me and repugnant. Nevertheless, it's my job to have the fiscal court go through process to get that evidence beyond what my personal feeling may be, beyond what everybody's personal feeling may be, has to be based on facts and evidence of when somebody else's rights begin to affect the rest of our rights. And that rub between property rights and personal rights is where this comes down to. And I think that's something that has to be the product of a public hearing. People need to be able to come out and say what their feelings are about this, what they believe the effect it's going to be on them, their property values, their families, their ability to enjoy their property. Also, Mr. Green ought to be able to come out and say, hey, this is why I don't think it affects those things. This is why I should have the right to contract with somebody. That's the essence of what a government ends up being about, is trying to figure out and find that balance between those lines and maximize everyone's rights. And like I say, while I personally hate the idea of 700-foot plus towers, especially a ton of them dotted all over our community, me hating it doesn't affect anything. That's my job is going to be to provide the best legal advice for the best fair and appropriate hearing and process that this fiscal court can have, and I will continue to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. I echo everything that's just been said. And the challenge of this decision is the balance between personal property rights and the rights of neighbors and what's best for our community. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure we can reach that point. It just won't be easy. And I know it's controversial and there's opinions on all sides of this. Our job is, I think, to try to eliminate the emotion and work on as much factual information and evidence as we can find and do the best we can. Unlike the comments of some people on social media, there's not a predetermined outcome here. There's not preconceived notion of what should happen. Nobody up here is you know, having their pockets lined with money to make this or that happen. It's all ridiculous. I can guarantee you that this fiscal court is made up of people with character and concern for the community, and would never even think about some of these accusations. And I hope everybody takes confidence in that. And I think, for instance, the hard work that Taylor Tompkins does to be responsive to the people in his district is an example of that. I know he's worked hard and taken phone calls all hours of the night and then handled it all. I mean, it's not easy for him. He's got other things to do in his own personal life as well, but it's part of the job. And he's taking it seriously, and I think everybody else in this fiscal court will too. So hang with us. It's a process we have to move through, and there'll be more information as we get closer, and hopefully we'll have, by the end of this, we'll have heard all the evidence. The Planning Commission will have heard all the evidence it thinks it needs to hear and come up with the best decision possible. It is unfortunate what happened to that young lady over the weekend. It's ironic that after that happening, you know, we're considering addressing a ordinance, a state law that was passed allowing UTVs on county roads, public roads, with proper licensing. There's been a lot of support for that in this community. I've heard from a lot of people who would like us to address that, and I plan to bring that next meeting for us to consider possible ordinance that way, agreeing with the state. The state passed the law such that it's not required of counties, only if they opt in, and I'll be bringing that to our attention, knowing that there's no ordinance that can protect everybody from everything in every circumstance. Accidents will happen, and we're very sorry for that family's loss. But I wanted to say that before just launching into the idea that we're going to be considering a UTV ordinance next meeting and being a little insensitive. We're not. We understand. The long-term recovery group, I'm sorry, we are still battling this flood. There are 12 families, I believe, that are still basically in temporary housing, figuring out a future for them in the ways we can. Still on top of our minds, and there are still people, you know, victims of the flood out there dealing with it. So the long-term recovery group is made up of citizens from the community trying to help guide resources, especially for those families and other both people and businesses that are still recovering as well. So it'll be an ongoing process. I will commend our EMA and FEMA representatives who have already pushed out more than $750,000 into our community of FEMA funds to help those families, help those individuals. I didn't think it would happen that fast. FEMA's not known for being quick, but they've already done that. I'll invite everybody to the State of the City, State of the County luncheon on the 24th, held annually by the Chamber of Commerce, and all the fiscal courts obviously invited. Hope anybody who interested about what's happened in the city and county in the last year and what we look for in the future to attend. Please contact the Chamber of Commerce if you'd like to attend. If I have nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor can leave.